This is going to be a fun one because you're going to hear all about what's going to happen on the 150th. Our speaker is Professor David Mindell, who is down there working on his computer, so I'm going to drag on in here while he gets his slide set up. Let me give you an introduction, and it's long enough that it'll take me 5 minutes to get through his introduction. He is the Francis and David Dibner Professor of the History of Engineering and Manufacturing. He is a Professor of Engineering Systems. He is a Director of the Program in Science, Technology, and Society. He's the Chair of the MIT150 Steering Committee. Does this sound like a man that's overworked? But most important, he is an MIT alumnus. Now, before coming to MIT, he worked for Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution as an engineer in their deep submergence laboratory, and he's still connected with that work. His research interests include the history of automation in the military, the history of electronics and computing, theories of engineering systems, deep ocean robotic archaeology, and the history of space exploration. So, and there's an even longer bio in your packet. So if you're ready to go, I will give you who is truly a Renaissance man, Professor David Mindell.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to this group for a number of reasons. Not least is you are both part of and represent this broader population, which is A, the subject of much of the celebration around the MIT 150th and your ancestors. B, the constituency and a significant part of the audience for a lot of these celebrations, and C, some source of the success of them, given some of the opportunities I'll talk about for participation and volunteering and just generally rousing the crowds and the community. I have the good fortune to have been raised in Rochester, New York, which celebrated its 150th anniversary when I was in high school, so I have a lot of practice at this word, sesquicentennial. But you may want to start practicing now because it doesn't always flow off the tongue, but it's actually quite a pretty word. And I was asked just about 2 years ago, also in the summer and fall of 2008, by Susan Hockfield to chair the steering committee on the MIT 150th. And this steering committee consists of actually the broadest representation of, I think, any committee I've ever served on at MIT. There are representatives from the Alumni Association, from all 5 schools, associate deans from all 5 schools, staff, presidents of the Graduate Student Association, president of the Undergraduate Student Association, a really wonderful cross-section of what the Institute really is about today. And it's also staffed by Gail Gallagher and the people in the president's office who know how to run things like commencement and big events and are extremely highly competent professional staff people, which is a pleasure to work with and was a lot of why I was willing to take this on. I want to talk to you today about not all of the program because there's quite a lot and I don't want to overwhelm people, but I'll catch a few of the highlights and then a little bit of the survey of some of the other things, but also my real goal is to highlight places for both alumni leadership participation as well as alumni participation more generally. And I really have 3 messages, and those are participation, participation, participation. A lot of the basic frameworks are set. We're still working through a lot of details, but we basically know what's going to happen all spring. And the big outstanding question is, who's going to come? What's the success of each of these individual events? And I hope and I think we'll be overwhelmed by quite a number of them. So these are just some broad categories. I'll talk about each one of these in more detail. I'll go through some of the events, not all of them, but I'll list a few of them. Then I'm going to talk about, actually this way, the history events first, then some of the more general events, and then really some of the key major centerpiece events as we go forward. The MIT 150 website went live this summer. I encourage you all to have a visit. It's constantly going to be growing and having more and more information. It also has a lot of the links as far as context for people who want to get involved. And this is part of a year-long publicity campaign which includes both our local outlets, Technology Review, the faculty newsletter, the sort of MIT community outreach. There's, I think that we're about to send an email to all the alumni this week. And then also a kind of national press plan, because we really see this as the chance to tell MIT's story to the country and to the world. And there's a good case to be made, and I'll come around to this, that that story needs to be told now more than ever, given the problems that are facing us. There are a number of historically oriented projects. I'm a historian, and actually most of these were initiated before I came on board as the chairperson of the committee and are actually coming to fruition. One is this Infinite History Project, which is a collection of about 105, I believe, oral histories from MIT, particularly MIT leaders, intellectual and administrative, but a cross-section of the Institute as well, to capture the sense of the last 50 years. And no small number of these were done by your own Karen Aronson here in the front row, who probably knows more of the inside story of MIT of the last 50 years than anybody at this moment. But very shortly, that will all go live on the web with the video, with a very sophisticated way where the text is all indexed to the video, so you can search through the text and then it'll quickly point you to particular places on the video. And let me tell you, one of the things I've done as part of this is I teach a class on the history of MIT, which is actually a wonderful lens to look at the history of science and technology in the last 150 years, actually the last 200 years even. And this is a source for a class like that that's just unsurpassed. We didn't have it last year when we taught the class the first time. We will have it this year. There's also online, it's not quite posted yet, but it will be, I believe, in January go live. The MIT archives have put together this timeline of institute events, again, probably beginning before the actual anniversary in 1861, and then it's one of these wonderful sophisticated timelines where you can click on it and find more out and find links to particular events. There's also a book, actually brought it with me, but it's in my briefcase there. It's just been published by the MIT Press called Becoming MIT, and it's a collection of essays by professional historians, a number from this campus, but not all, about critical moments in the turning point history of MIT, and it's really a wonderful book, and again, has sort of become the textbook for our undergraduate class on the history of MIT. A few points I just want to make is that, as you know, October of 2008 was a sort of significant event in world history, and it was really a shock to us as well, because we really didn't know what was coming. For all we knew, we were entering a depression, and a lot of the first year of the steering committee was consumed with how do we do a celebration in this climate, or in the climate that will be in 2011, which nobody knew what it was, that's appropriate. The Institute was cutting its budget. The endowment was under a lot of pressure. As a department head, I was feeling those pressures in a very real way. And so we came up with a number of different policies that really felt will allow us to do an ethical job on this 150th. And two of them are relevant here. One of them is a certain number of events that were going to happen anyway are tagged as 150th events. The Koch Cancer Center was going to open no matter what, but it has a very significant connection to the 150th, A. And then B, nearly every one of the things I'm telling you about are places where the resources are being spent on campus for faculty, student, staff projects. And we're keeping as much of it in-house and using the resources that we have, particularly the creativity of all of those populations, to put this together, and that's been very successful. So the Koch Cancer Center right next door here will be dedicated on March 4th. There's also a symposium about cancer, which I'll come to. The new Sloan School will be dedicated on May 13th down the street. The MIT Global Challenge, probably something you've heard of already, is run by the Global Service Center and is a sort of global partnering with MIT alums and local groups to do sort of innovative service projects. And they have a whole very sophisticated website and will have an awards series for the best of these projects, and their final presentation will be, I believe it's in February as part of the 150th. And then, as I said, we're opening up the events calendar to events that people want to contribute that meet a pretty minor set of criteria, most of them being they don't overlap in schedule with the other big events we have planned. And departments, laboratories, centers, MIT clubs will contribute their own pieces to this. Now I want to talk about some of the really sort of centerpiece core events of this, and what I'm calling the emotional centerpiece of the 150th celebration. I should say officially the celebration runs from January 5th until it ends on Tech Day, which is June 7th next year, or I think the morning after Tech Day. Sunday brunch is the official end. But the actual day of MIT's charter was April 10th, 1861, when the 20 years of William Barton Rodder's efforts really came to fruition. Interestingly, those of you who are American history buffs will know that that's 2 days before the firing of Fort Sumter and the country erupting in this conflagration, which had great effect on MIT's first 5 years, and actually illustrates the way that MIT's history and the United States history have been deeply intertwined from the beginning. And there's no sense that MIT was ever separate from what was happening in the history of the country. And we put this event together. We're calling the 150th convocation on that day. It happens, by luck, it's a Sunday, so it's convenient for everybody for work and school. And it's modeled on actually not one of MIT's centennial celebrations, but on the mid-century convocation of 1949, the highlight of which was basically Winston Churchill coming and saying, "Thank you, MIT, for inventing all the technologies that helped save my country during the war." And given the newly revealed power of the atomic bomb, now it's time to really think about the moral and social implications of the technologies we create. And that was a pivotal moment in, I think, bringing MIT out of an exclusive focus on science and engineering into this larger world of leadership at the national and global scale. And the convocation is designed to highlight, in a sense, the moral leadership of MIT that comes along with the intellectual leadership. And the idea being, and again, a lot of this was hatched in the crisis of '08 and the aftermath, which we're still in to some degree, and holding up not just MIT itself, but the kind of habits of mind that are fostered here, diligence and service and integrity, as a kind of beacon to the nation and to the world, as the sort of things that would be valuable for students of all ilks, whether they come to MIT or not, whether they become scientists and engineers or not, but to focus on the pursuit of knowledge and the kinds of values that come along with a serious, disciplined pursuit of knowledge. And we'll be inviting speakers. We are in the process, actually, of inviting the speakers who will speak to those themes. I'm not ready to announce them yet because people of the stature we're looking for don't quite commit to their schedule 6 months ahead of time. And President Hockfield will speak. There will be a wonderful processional of Nobel Prize winners and Marshall Scholars and Rhodes Scholars and MacArthur Scholars and entrepreneurs and robots. And it's a sort of serious event in the serious with the playfulness of everything that MIT has, be in academic regalia. It will be at the Convention Center downtown. I forget the formal name of that place, the Boston Convention and Events Center, but it's the new Convention Center downtown, which is only one of a couple of places in the city you can accommodate all faculty, all students, all staff, all alumni who want to come, even potentially parents and other groups. And so, university presidents from around the world reflecting MIT's different relationships. And this is really the sort of ceremonial focus of the 150th semester, as it were. And essentially we're saying, if you're an alum and you live far away and you want to come to MIT for one part of the 150th, this is the thing to come for. There's a lot of other great stuff going on, and I'm sure other people will want to come for other more targeted pieces, but this is the main focus of it. It also, the timing works out very well in that the event itself is Sunday, I sort of put it up here, roughly 2 to 4 p.m. We haven't set those times exactly yet. But that leaves the entire weekend. It happens to be campus preview weekend, so it should be a good selling point for the... But it leaves the entire weekend open for other groups, athletics, different labs, different centers, different living groups, to have their own gatherings around that, including on the morning of that Sunday or the evening or the Saturday night before. And the Institute will provide bus transportation from campus to the convention center and back. So you can imagine the kind of atmosphere we sort of envision as lots of different events going on here, and then people gathering and getting piled up and going over there. And then actually there also is space. There will be one single reception in this space afterward, and there's also other space for more focused receptions. So that's the part that really we think about as being the moment, the actual signing of the charter. We're actually going to get the charter from the State House. It's interesting to borrow it. It needs to come with a state police escort. So there will be some pomp and circumstance around this document. And I don't know if any of you have looked at the history of when MIT moved across the campus across the river in 1916. That celebration has also been very much on our minds. And it was very kind of high camp. And you had one of the architecture professors dressed up as Merlin, and there was a ceremonial boat that carried this document in a golden coffin. And I don't think we'll achieve those levels but we do have my colleague Janet Sonnenberg, who's the head of the Music and Theater Arts Department, is helping us with the staging, and it's really going to be a lot of fun and very interesting. Then there's the intellectual core of the celebration, because we felt, and I personally felt, and the committee did as well, that what is the part of this that we really need as faculty to make sure is in there? And there's a lot of interesting things to celebrate and a lot of commemorations, but we also want to keep very much the focus on the fact that what do we do best? We bring people together who have high levels of expertise and work on the problems of the day, and it's actually, at the end of the day, our intellectual work, which is obviously education and research, that is really what this place is about. And so toward that end, we decided to we planned this symposia series. There are 6 official MIT 150th symposia. They were selected in a fairly competitive process where we asked the faculty and the senior administrative staff for proposals. There was a faculty committee that sorted through the proposals, and these are the 6 areas that we ended up focusing on. They are in no way fully representative of what goes on this campus, and I'm sure you'll see any number of things that are very important, not listed here, but they are more typically representative slices of what is going on today. And again, who are teams of faculty who really got together to step forward and make these happen. So the first one is on economics and finance, obviously not only a relevant topic in today's policy world, but also something that MIT has made an inestimable contribution to. And I'll actually come back to that one in a minute. I mentioned a little bit the cancer symposium, looking again at science and engineering. I should say also, every one of these symposium is larger than a single department, and it's larger than a single school. So for particular symposia looking at the history of a particular department, which are many of them significant, those are not the symposia. These are very, very large synthetic things, and they're intended to be significant moments in contribution to the topic itself. So we hope that when people look back on the history of thinking about economics and finance in the second decade of the century, people will look at this symposium as a significant moment. And all 6 of these are designed to be that way. Cancer, science, and engineering, really something new that's been done here that is going to be communicated out to the world. One on the women of MIT. You'll all remember the significant events surrounding the women's report from 10 years ago. and which had huge impact in all universities around the country and many around the world. This is the 10 years later evaluation of how does it look 10 years later, how are we doing? And that group of faculty is putting together a follow-on report to the original Women in Science report, and that will be unveiled and then discussed at that symposium. Computation and the Transformation of Practically Everything. That one, note, is also right after the convocation, so if people do come in, there's an exciting one to stay for there, and really focuses, yes, on computer science, but also on all the other disciplines, from movie making to practicing biological sciences to practically everything we can think of, as they say, and the role that computing has played. And Victor Zhu, who's the head of CSAIL, who's leading that, and that group, they have some incredible connections to people in that world, so I expect there'll be quite some big names there. Then one on exploration, the future of exploration. Again, a critical time, especially in space exploration, but in all of these different fields as you look at issues like climate change and our awareness of potential life on other planets. MIT's played a big role there, but there's a lot of issues to talk about that we really hope to make a big impact on. And then the last one, Brain, Minds, and Machines, is the formation and, in some sense, the first public face of something new that's getting going here called the Intelligence Initiative, which is sort of 20 years after AI, traditional AI, or 40 years after traditional AI. How do we rethink the problem of intelligence, but bringing in the brain sciences and the cognitive sciences as well as linguistics, in addition to the computer folks? And again, that one is scheduled to be a major piece. So every one of these, again, some alum I'm sure will prefer to come to some of these than to go to the convocation. That's wonderful. And these will go on throughout the term. They'll all be in Kresge Auditorium. Each one of them will have a contingent of open to the public, and then also certain pieces set aside not only for our students, but also bringing in students from schools in the region, particularly students in disadvantaged areas. And really, this is another principle of the whole 150th celebration, is to be as inclusive as possible of not only our community, but also the other communities we are part of, Boston and Cambridge, and then making sure that it's open to all different students, particularly from all different socioeconomic aspects of society. Just another little highlight on this symposium. It's very exciting because the registration for this opens on November 1st. So it's really like the horse is about to run out of the gate on all of these, and we're looking to them with great excitement. Another significant event, especially regarding outreach, is the open house, which is Saturday, April 30th. It turns out, anybody here remember going to an MIT open house in your time here? Yeah. So turns out this is an old tradition at MIT. As near as we can tell, it started in 1922 and was held on and off biannually or so on until possibly the early 80s, as the last one we sort of know of. And a number of people who we interacted with or on the committee said, that was a great thing. I remember coming when I was 6 years old, and why don't we do it anymore? And actually, nobody really can figure out why we didn't do it anymore. And so we're reviving that tradition. And it's, again, a very focused attempt to open the institute and open the laboratories and open the facilities, not only to our faculty, staff, students, and alums, but also to the Cambridge community and the Boston community and the New England regional community. You can imagine, and we really hope to see students coming in from all over to really get a sense of what is this place really like. And as you know, if you just show up here on a typical school day and walk around, it's hard to see in the laboratories. It's hard to see what's really going on. And so we imagine this as, it happens to be, well, it's not a coincidence, but it's part of the Cambridge Science Fair, Cambridge Science Festival, which there's a special version of that will be happen for the 150th. So it's got this kind of K through 12 aspect to it, and we think of it as a major part of outreach. Again, not only to K through 12, but also to students from disadvantaged communities to come to MIT, get the message that A, this is very exciting, B, there's a place for you here if you want to pursue your studies to this degree, and very much the opportunity for the departments, labs, and centers to, this is the place where they can contribute. It's sort of a limited commitment, which people like. It's one day, and poster sessions, and we really imagine it with a kind of science fair aspect to it. My personal pet project for this is to try to get either Killian Court or the Kresge Oval full of old steam engines and old cars and helicopters and, you know, just really good old-fashioned machinery. My understanding is there are a lot of alum in the region who are involved with some of these associations, and we'd love to hear from you, just to really get this sense of excitement and all the fun that goes along with science and engineering. There's also quite an extensive festival of art, science, and technology. And this group is led by Todd Mackover and has a series of events going on over the course of the whole 150th. They also have a couple of days late in April at the end of the Cambridge Science Festival. The open house is the beginning bookend. This is the end where they're, I believe, and I shouldn't say this, but don't quote me on it, they're going to actually take over a significant part of Killian Court and part of Memorial Drive and really transform it into these extremely large, exciting, very high technology art projects. And as you may well know, the collaboration between science and technology and art is an old tradition on MIT's campus too, and really people are moving that forward into the future through this event. So final message, of course, how to help. And the number one bullet there is probably the number one thing. Generate interest, focus on your clubs. There are going to be a lot of opportunities for clubs, especially those further away, to participate online. All of the symposia will be webcast, some of them live depending on their enrollments, some of them within a few days after. A great opportunity to participate. Share your story. There's a section called The Corridor on the website that is intended to gather MIT input from the community on stories and whatnot. One thing I've noticed in the teaching of the class is that student life is actually very poorly documented at MIT historically. We don't know a whole lot about your average student or your average student's day in 1870 or 1920 or even to some degree 1970. Obviously the latter one we can do something about. Encourage your department and others to participate in the open house. We're certainly looking for volunteers if you live in the area just to help out with the logistics and things. There's volunteers. Forward the messages to your email list for particular things on the, that we're sending out. Mention us in newsletters if you have club newsletters. We're pretty active in the social media world, and that's only going to get more so. There is an MIT150 Facebook page. There is a Twitter address. And last of all, of course, attend the events with your colleagues, with your family, with your friends. You know, it's really for all of you and for the communities that you connect to and represent that this celebration is happening. I very much look forward to, I've been talking to Lou Alexander about the Tech Day event, and you know, Tech Day has the nice privilege of being the last word on the 150th. But at that point, we'll be able to look back and we'll sort of say, what kind of chords did these events strike with the community? What did we learn about MIT's role in the world by people's response to these events that we didn't maybe realize, both at the level of the community that we're in, faculty, staff, students, and alums, but also nationally and globally. And I'm going to leave you with this image, which is a great image. I actually forget what city it's from, but this image from 1916 is an alumni club far flung from the campus, participating in the events of 1916, celebrating the moving of the campus over here by the very exciting new technology of long-distance telephony. You may know that actually Theodore Vail, who was the head of AT&T, who was also the father of the transcontinental line, which opened just a few months earlier in 1916, was very involved in planning MIT's new campus and in helping get it designed. Particularly, Bosworth was Vail's architect before he came to MIT to design the buildings here. And so he left his stamp on this event by connecting all the alumni in a very, very forward-looking way, if you think about the way we think about it today. And this is a pretty good model for how we'd love to have the alumni connected as well. Please come to campus. Please encourage your classmates and colleagues to come to campus. But also, if you can't come to campus or you can't come for all the events, come to campus remotely and be there in the virtual world. So happy to answer questions. Thanks very much. Okay.
Actually, I'm going to make just a few remarks, and then David and I will both take questions. Thank you for that wonderful overview. That was you captured the flavor and the emotion of the event, I think. Obviously, it's an incredible array of activities that are planned for the 150th. So I want to talk a little bit more specifically about how you and how the Alumni Association are involved in some of these activities. As David said, as our key volunteers, you play a really important part in helping to make this celebration come alive in your home communities. Obviously, those of you who live close to campus will have lots of opportunities to participate, but we want everyone across the world to have an opportunity to feel that they were a part of the celebration as well. So one of our goals is to have at least 150 gatherings worldwide during the 150 days. So this being MIT, we thought we had to have an equation to explain what we're trying to ask you to do to help. As David said, stay involved virtually, bookmark the website, go back there often, participate as well on campus as well as virtually, and of course, if you're local, come to campus. The celebration is not just about MIT. It's about all of us, as David was saying, that the alumni are part of this community. And so you are our work product, and you are our representatives to the world. You're a part of this celebration. This slide you've seen before. Look at it often. Bookmark it. Go there. Make it your desktop. The Facebook page is a great way to stay on top of the latest news. This, by the way, this website is going to be very dynamic. It will be updated on a continual basis, so you really do want to go back there often. And when the full functionality of the website is launched in January, there will be lots more interactive opportunities than there are even now. So visit frequently, stay informed. Some concrete ways to get involved. David mentioned that we're taking events that have already been, that were normally going to happen anyway, and branding them with sesquicentennial flavor. Toast to IAP is one of those events. We've done it for several years, as many of you know. And it is, Toast to IAP occurs either on the same day or close to the same day all around the world. Catherine, how many did we have last year? Over 50. So we hope to have more. Wouldn't it be great if we had 150? That would be perfect. So share the camaraderie, get involved. If there isn't one in your area, plan one. Charter Day Convocation, I'm not going to talk about that because David gave you a terrific description. I think it's going to be an unbelievable experience. But what you can do is make sure you share that news and share that date with people you know and make plans to come back yourself. One of the pillars of the 150th celebration is service to the world. And in that spirit, we are encouraging, the Alumni Association is encouraging clubs and groups to organize days of service in their home communities. Many groups do this already, but this year we'd like to add some collective energy to that effort. Your group could support one of the first robotic competitions, help in a food bank, participate in a cleanup, whatever resonates for your population. But please do something. As an example, the MIT Club of Washington, D.C. has already figured out what their service project is going to be, and they're challenging other alumni groups to follow their lead. So the DC Club, in honor of the Institute's 150th anniversary, has committed to provide a $150 MIT Science Fair prize in each of the 10 school districts in DC, not just for this year, but for the next 5 years. Some alumni will be judges, others may be presenters of the awards, others may just be spectators. But their goal is to raise the visibility of MIT, the excellence of our science and technology, and they're actually putting it into action. So that's the gauntlet has been thrown down on that one. In the same vein as the Day of Service, there's the Global Challenge. David also mentioned that. Just a little bit more description on that. It is designed after the MIT Ideas Competition. Does anyone know what the Ideas is an acronym for? Oh, come on, you guys are smart people. I'll give you a hint. I is for innovation. What do you think the D is? No, good guess. Close, but not quite right. Yeah, I was going to say, think Jeff Newton. It's innovation, development, enterprise, action, and service. And the Ideas Composition awards prizes to student teams for outstanding public service. During the 150th, these teams are going to share their ideas and their progress via social media, and the winning projects will get seed money to move their project forward and implement it globally. So you can see some of the examples of those projects up there, and you can learn more about that on the website. Their website went live this past week, and I'm sure that it will be a very interactive and robust place to visit. Finally, the Toast to Tech. David talked about the finale weekend. One piece of that the Alumni Association is deeply involved in organizing in collaboration with the 150th office is a Toast to Tech 2011 that'll happen in Killian Court on Saturday night of reunion weekend. There will be a multimedia retrospective of events and activities that have taken place during the 150 days. We'll have a champagne toast, spectacular anniversary cake. It's definitely going to be a moment not to be missed. So if you can be there, please be there. So we're counting on you to help us celebrate. So I'm going to ask you to make a personal commitment right now here in this room. Staff members, come on. They are going to be passing out cards to you that articulate some of the ways that you can be involved, many of the ways that you can be involved. And we're going to ask you to please complete that card to tell us what you're going to commit to do. You can tear off the large portion, save the small business card size portion, which has the website address and key dates that you can keep in your wallet. And at the end of the session, turn in the commitment card to the staff in the back, and they will have a gift to thank you for your commitment to participate in and support the 150th. You can ensure our success because it will be your enthusiasm and leadership that carries this forward. Now, I believe we have some time for questions. So, David, why don't we take a seat? And we'll be happy to answer any questions. Please use the microphones located in the aisles. Oh, you didn't have one of those.
I'll defer to you.
All right. No, she went first last time. We're going to let you go first this time.
Thank you. I'm a new member of the Corporation Development Committee, and it seems to me as I hear about your wonderful plans for the 150th that there may be an opportunity to recognize major donors over this period of time. I personally will be soliciting 6 or 7 in Florida, and what a better way to incent them, it seems to me, is to say they'll be giving an opportunity to shine at the either the convocation or perhaps at the Toast to Tech. So I'd ask you to think about that, and it might give us some additional leverage as we approach these major donors.
Thank you for that suggestion. It's already in the planning phase.
Terrific.
Karen.
I'm here for a commercial. As Professor Mindell mentioned, I've been fortunate enough to do about 36 of these interviews that will go live 2 hours each, videotaped and transcript, with about 100 people who've been active. But a lot of them are alumni, including Professor Mindell, who has a graduate degree from here. He's been down in a little submarine and up in space. But a lot of them cover, so where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Did you tinker? How in the world did you get to MIT? What was your experience like? They're fascinating. So it's easy come January to go on the web and listen to the tales. We have 2 past executive vice presidents, Jim Champy and Bill Hecht are part of it, and lots of other alumni. They're fun, they're fascinating, and, invite you to sip from the fire hose of the infinite histories.
I should also mention that wasn't in the list because we just nailed down the date the other day. February 15th, we're going to do a full-on History of MIT event, which is a little bit centered on the book, a little bit centered on the class that Rose Smith and I teach. And Karen doesn't know it yet, but we're going to invite her to talk about her experience interviewing all these people. And that will be the kind of official historical event of the 6-month 150.
John?
Good morning. I'm John Gavinonis from the Club of the Delaware Valley. The 6 symposia that you mentioned, are those going to be archived so that those who can attend can view them?
Yeah, absolutely. They will be. The policy is if they're sold out, they'll be broadcast live on the web, but we don't want to broadcast them live if we don't fill up because we don't want to take away.
Like the NFL?
Yeah, exactly. And if they don't sell out, they'll just be webcast within the next week or so. And then that'll obviously be archived. And then the idea is that there will be a publication that comes out of either each of the 6 or all 6 together. And it's sort of up to the organizers whether that's an online publication or an actual book that you get that summarizes the proceedings and whatnot. So the answer is yes.
Wonderful. A follow-up question with regard to engaging the alumni network. With Toast IAP, it's very nice that we have some guidance with a program that we could put together specifically to engage, MIT10 alumni. Is there any guidance that could be provided from the Alumni Association or from the MIT150 committee for a specific event with some level of core programming that might be consistent throughout all of the clubs? So maybe we can have a 150 event with similar historical type programming throughout the nation and the world.
That was something I skipped in my remarks because David did such a thorough job of describing the convocation, but we will have an event kit in a box. So you can do an event from a box, and I see actually we have, I'm going to show you here, we have a sneak preview of one of the features in the box will be our very own William Barton Rogers. So you can have him at your event. And we're encouraging, for the convocation day, for Sunday the 10th, if you can't be here, it will be videotaped, streamed live. You can do an event if you choose your timing well. We will give you sort of little artifacts and gifts and fun things that you can add the 150th flavor to the event, and it will almost be like you're here with us.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hi, Bill Frezza, class of 76, and also president of the House Corporation of the Chi Phi fraternity. I'd like to ask a question on behalf of the whole fraternity system, which goes back at least 125 of those 150 years. What can we do to make our student life stories part of the larger story? We actually do have some pretty good records and photographs. And how can we energize our actives and alums to put their energy into this?
That's a really good question.
I didn't hear that mentioned anywhere so far, so I thought I'd ask.
I see someone raising their hand behind you. Ernie Sabine, hi.
I'm Ernie Sabine from AILG, and we will try to work with everybody to coordinate all the histories, the rich histories of all the FSILGs over those. Sorry, Ernie Sabine from AILG, and we will work to coordinate all of the histories of the FSILGs, because there are extensive histories, and get those recorded as well.
I can add a little bit of that. actually, when we taught the history of MIT class last spring, the final paper assignment for students was to describe an aspect of student life, write a history of an aspect of student life. And those histories were actually really interesting, from the Rifle Club to the Arab Students League and all kinds of interesting stuff. And one of the students actually wrote a history of Burton Connor, which he was at the time the president of the Student Association now. And Rose Smith, who I co-taught with, who was the housemaster at Burton Connor, sort of continued to support the student a little bit over the summer, and he gathered more and more. And just about a week ago, I'm also a housemaster at Edgerton House. We sat down with all of the other housemasters at a dinner and asked exactly the question that you asked. And so there's a lot of interest among both students and alums. I do housemaster's teas at my, it's a graduate dorm, and by far the most successful one I've had was Bob Simha, who headed the planning office at MIT for many years, come and talk about the history of Edgerton House. The students really wanted to know. And they asked for him to come back again and all this sort of stuff. I mean, I've had people who walked on the moon come in, didn't quite get that response. And so there's clearly a lot of interest in this topic. And as I said, we found a real dearth of history of student life in general. And so it's going to be decentralized like so much of what happens at MIT, but there is definitely a movement afoot among the housemasters and the students. Some of them do have, like the Ashdown House history on its website is pretty good. Others have a lot less, but most of the source for that history in the last half century at least resides in your files and folders and own memories, and so by all means, either send that in through the corridor or contact the houses that you were in and contribute that way.
Thank you.
Hi, Rizal Adine, Club of Long Island. My question is actually for William Rogers. No, I'm sorry. Out of all the events that we heard, which events would you stress for families to come to and take part in?
Oh, good question.
Open house.
Open house is the obvious one in that, it's during the day. It's for younger kids, it's easier to come for a smaller part of it if there are short attention spans and that sort of thing. And then the convocation is it's a little more solemn, but it's going to have an element of spectacle to it. I think that will appeal to a lot of different people. So those are the two I would say that are the most focused in terms of time. And then there is the MIT Museum is doing an exhibit of 150 objects. They've had a website up for a couple of years collecting input on what are the 150 objects, and then those objects were going to be on display, and some of them are scientific objects and some of them are life objects and things like that, so that might be a good one as well.
The fast finale weekend
Yeah,
might be fun
the Arts
because
Festival.
that will be where the Memorial Drive is closed, and there will be a lot of it's very kinetic, so you can walk around and see things. It's easy to do with kids, I would think.
I mean, the other way to look at it is if you could just write a note for your kids that excuses them from school for the entire semester next spring, and then have them come to MIT to all of these events, that will be an extremely good education for them.
Thank you.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Sally Sosnowitz. I'm the director of the MIT Public Service Center that's sponsoring the Global Challenge. And that question made me want to come down here and just say, the Global Challenge is a web interface that enables the entire worldwide MIT community to get involved with innovation as public service. We've run the ideas competition for 10 years. This is now a way of opening it up and saying, welcome alumni, come on in and participate. And then to have the entire world tell us the problems they want the MIT community to solve, and have this MIT community form teams to actually work on those problems, and to have sponsored awards that then back those projects so they get done. And to the gentleman who asked that last question, that was the inspiring moment for me to run down here and say, your kids are online, the people in your family are online. If you yourself are not online, believe me, other people are tapping into this interface. And the Global Challenge will be something you can watch weekly. You can see invention at work. You can join in on it. And you can help the schools in your community tap into this excellent resource for understanding the needs of the world and the abilities of technical people and others to address them. So I welcome you to use that interface for joining into this whole MIT 150. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sally.
Hello, my name is Douglas Roth. What I have not heard mentioned is sailing at MIT, and a very fortunate coincidence that they'll be celebrating their 75th anniversary with the 150th, and they are, you know, it's worthwhile mentioning. It's where I learned to sail, continues to be important in my life, and it's right in the front yard of MIT, and they need money too. They want to remodel their sailing pavilion.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that seems like an ideal opportunity for the open house, for example. In fact, even if they got together with someone like Ocean Engineering and had both the boathouse open, and I know from work I've done with undersea vehicles, no small amount of it is done testing at the docks at the sailing club. So those kind of opportunities are very much open for a club like that.
I don't have a way of organizing it. I just maybe you can pass it along.
I think DAPER is planning on doing an all-athletics reception before the convocation. So that will be one opportunity to sort of bring all former athletes or all athletic alumni into a room in support of athletics, and possibly an organization or an organizing moment for a sailing group. If I'm
or you know, on the MIT 150 website, a video or something like that. Thanks.
In curiosity about the MIT Open House, I have an iPad here, and I remembered I had some sort of article about it in the Tech from 1978. I was the operations chair of that open house, so it has great memories for me, so I can give you some insight in the future on how that went, because I was in charge of all the volunteers that were going on for the event, and I have the article here if you want to put that as part of your history.
There is a organizing committee that Paul Agassi and Elizabeth Young are leading to deal with how to get all the operational stuff worked out, so that would be very helpful for them. We'd love to talk
Okay, so I have I'm indicating that on here. I just thought it might be interesting to hear about it. It was very, very successful. We had 20,000 people showed up from the community for that open house, which I suspect was one of the last ones that happened.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Okay, this has to be our last question because I realize we're over time. This is too much fun to talk about.
Thank
Chiquita.
you. Hi, I'm Chiquita White, and my question is for the professor. There are a lot of affinity groups that are affiliated with MIT, and I'm wondering, how do we make sure that we get you information that you may not have access to about the affinity group's history, and also what we're doing nowadays as far as technological advances, so that you can include it in your February event?
The February event.
You said there's a history of
The history
MIT.
event.
Yes.
Well, for the specific history, you can just email me, or as far as other kinds of groups, you know, one thing I didn't really mention about the way this is organized, it's actually very decentralized, and the only part of it that's really centrally organized is the convocation itself, the event. You know, the symposia are all run by the faculty who are running them, and the staff that we have are running at 110%, and so it's very heavily dependent on particular groups to celebrate and contribute in their own kind of way. So, you know, that's sort of similar with the sailing club is every group, any group should and needs to take it on themselves to some degree and plug themselves into these different events. And we have all kinds of guidelines and some administrative support for that process, but we can't organize all those pieces. So by all means, you know, there are lots of pockets of opportunity, and the thing is sort of designed that way for whichever groups to participate that way.
Okay, but for the history event, just email you.
Yeah, by all means.
Thank you.
You know, or if there's something that's sort of more long-term archival status, it should go to the archives, and they can preserve it long-term. But they're careful about what they preserve because they get a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for coming. We now have a brief break.